And now to Washington, and new steps being taken to find Attorney General Eric Holder in contempt of Congress. The House Oversight Committee had given Mr. Holder until February 9th to produce documents related to the Fast and Furious gun running operation, a controversial program that put guns in the hands of Mexican criminals, ultimately leading to the death of an American Border Patrol agent. Well, that deadline has come and gone, and the Attorney General has not complied. Darrell Issa is the chairman of the House Oversight Committee and the man threatening to hold the Attorney General in contempt. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Megan.
The Attorney General says, look, he's given you over 6,000 documents. He's not going to give you the stuff that relates to internal DOJ deliberations or discussions about your subpoenas. He says that's consistent with past practices with the DOJ. What more do you want?
Well, you know, everyone can talk about what's consistent. We have lots of examples for exactly the kinds of documents we want. But more importantly, there's nothing consistent at DOJ with lying to Congress. There's nothing consistent at DOJ with delivering us a document that was false on its face that had to be retracted. And last but not least, it's inconceivable that Lanny Breuer didn't tell Eric Holder that he was in fact going to Mexico to support and promote more gun walking, even on the day that we were being given a false document.
He heads up the criminal division at the DOJ, Lanny Breuer, for our viewers.
He does. And on February 4th, where we're getting a letter that says they don't do gun walking, he's trying to extend gun walking in cooperation with the Mexican authorities, who flat turned him down. Here's the point that you won't hear from Justice. They've given 80,000 documents to their Inspector General. They've given us 6,000 pages of documents. We could have a document fight, but here's what we need. We need to know who approved Fast and Furious, each and every person along that chain.
He says they don't know.
Well, if you give us the documents, we believe they do know. More importantly, witnesses and whistleblowers have told us several things. We're just trying to confirm with legitimate documents. Secondly, Congress was given false written and oral testimony. We deserve the documents that show the details of who did it. Remember, we have a witness we tried to interview who took the fifth, Patrick Cunningham, who headed all of the criminal division in Arizona. Last but not least, we have two informants who are being given a pass on any kind of criminal prosecution because, quote, they're cooperating witnesses. They were front and center on financing these guns. We have a right and an obligation to know, on behalf of the Terry family and others, why two people so connected to the murder of Brian Terry are never going to be prosecuted.
All right, let me jump in because I don't want to lose our viewers on this. What's happening now is, with Holder having gone before the committee 6 times, some people are saying more and more now this is political, that it's looking political because he keeps getting pulled in there. The committee is never satisfied. They want more and more documents, and now there's a threat to hold him in contempt of Congress, our Attorney General, which would be interesting because it's the DOJ that would have to enforce the contempt order. Query whether they'd be willing to do that. But to those people who now believe this has gotten political, what say you, Mr. Chairman?
Well, first of all, the 6 times, let's get it straight. 5 of the 6 times he went to committees of jurisdiction for other reasons and simply was asked a question about Fast and Furious. He went to appropriations and an appropriator asked him. That wasn't a trip to appropriations. He was there getting his funding. The same with judiciary, even when he made his false statement that he then had to modify. He came before the investigating committee once, and he said it was a fair hearing under oath. No question at all. We treated him fairly. We asked him tough questions. And at the end of the day, we did not have an answer as to who he was going to hold responsible for this failed program, from Lanny Breuer down or from the U.S. Attorney up. Secondly, we are not trying to make this political. We're trying to get this behind us. But for more than a year, we've been asking for documents we still don't have. 14 out of the 22 areas in which we asked for documents, they're flat not providing them. Most importantly, when we've made discoveries time and time again, we've shown that the documents they're not giving us ultimately contain information that Congress and the American people have a right to know. And if you want to make something political, the way you make it political is you take it into campaign season. We want to get this resolved well before we get any further into campaign season.
One more quick question on Fast and Furious, because I want to get to this other hearing that you're going to hold tomorrow that I think our viewers will have some interest in. But before we leave the Holder thing, he says he doesn't know. He says he doesn't know who authorized the program. In response to why no one's been fired, not one person has been fired, and he wouldn't even answer to Congress who authorized the program. Who? DOJ worked on the program. He couldn't even tell you who at DOJ authorized it because he says he doesn't know, and he has an inspector general who's looking into those things. Do you believe that?
I do believe that, quite frankly, Eric Holder's pretty detached. He has a hands-off way of doing business. It's disappointing because he should have known. He should have known at many junctures in the actual Fast and Furious, and he certainly should have known as we were being given false statements. You asked a question earlier, and I'll be brief. If we hold the Attorney General in contempt, the contempt will go to the U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C., who will either execute on that and get documents delivered as we were demanding, or the President will let the Attorney General go.
We'll see what happens on that. All right, let me shift to what's happening tomorrow, because you are holding a hearing with a number of some high-power witnesses talking about this effort by Kathleen Sebelius, the HHS Secretary, and this administration to force religious institutions to pay for birth control. Now the administration has taken sort of a compromise position, as they call it, of having insurance companies pay,
exactly,
not the religious institutions. They, I think, considered that the end of the matter. You clearly don't. What do you think should happen here?
Well, tomorrow we're going to hear from religious leaders, people of conscience, rabbis, priests, ministers, a few lay people, and they're going to tell us how this impacts the long tradition of separation of church and state, how it impacts the performance of their duty. Understand, in this country, a conscientious objector, in other words, we have a constitutional obligation to serve our country, but if you object for religious and moral reasons to killing people, we let you serve without actually serving with a weapon. Conscience has a long tradition in this country. We're holding a hearing to find where the lines are on conscience that no government can cross. We're going to listen to a lot of witnesses. They're experts on religion and on the question of conscience, and we're going to try and then take that as an answer for maybe a real compromise by the administration. Understood.
It's an interesting question because there's a legislation moving in both houses of Congress to sort of rein this in, but ultimately, the president has to sign legislation. So, Congressman Darrell Issa, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for being here. All the best, sir.
Thank you, Megyn.